Welcome back to another episode of the Be the CEO of Your Life and Business podcast. All right, so this week we are talking about a topic that we have talked about before, about this idea of balance. And if you've listened for long enough, you know that Laura and I are pretty much strong proponents of like the idea that balance just doesn't exist. It's just something that perhaps gets, thrown around as a buzzword, as if it's something attainable. And then when you don't achieve it, or if you don't define it well enough, that you don't achieve it and you feel like you are just not achieving the balance that you're supposed to be chasing, right? We see this all the time on social media where people are like, I spent 4 hours on my business today and now I can bring my kids to sports. And it's like,
such a myth.
It's such a myth. I mean, there's so much more behind that, right? Remember, you always just see like those highlight reels from people. So we wanted to bring a perspective about balance and the idea of whether or not balance is truly achievable. We don't believe it is, but to kind of recap on that topic and also to talk about really shifting your mindset and your perspective when you are maybe working a little bit harder in your business, or you have really big goals for yourself financially or with your health and fitness, that perhaps you're going to be focused a little bit more on those areas of your life, but there is going to be a ripple effect into the rest of your life. And it's just a matter of really trying to train yourself, I guess, to see the positive and see the good in what you are doing and the effort that you're putting in, which might make you feel a little out of balance.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a huge mindset shift. So I've talked about before, and Amy knows this, I struggled tremendously when my kids were really young with the idea of trying to balance my career and my home life. And, I realized well into it that it's just simply not possible, that I don't believe there is any such thing as balance. And I first came across this concept with Grant Cardone when we were on, I can't remember if it's when like our team had a Zoom call with him and his wife, or if I heard him say it somewhere, but he said, it's not work life and home life, it's just life. And that was like a huge light bulb moment for me, because I thought, wow, it is so true. Right. It's just all like we all have 24 hours and we're going to do what we're going to do in those 24 hours. But it's just one day where you go to work, you come home, you have everything within that one day.
Yep.
And so if you try to achieve this 50-50 split between work and home, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Right.
And because, let's take, for example, like work life versus your home life, right? How many times has work life bled into our home life, or home life?
How about this week?
Oh my gosh. We had home life here because Laura and I both had our daughters here at the office with us, because we're still in this weird like time warp of the last few weeks of summer where they don't have camps, they don't have anything else going on. So they're hanging out with us and it's been a blast. But that was a merge of our home life and our business all in one. There's no balance there. It's not. And I can't say that just because my daughter was here, I felt like I was spending quality time with her. Like that's not true.
We were very thankful that Olivia and Kaylee had each other.
Yes, we were very thankful for that because, but thinking of those, if you try to like put those in the bucket, right, towards your point, there's this percentage in mind where you're like, okay, well, 50% of my life is going towards my work, and then 50% is going to my family. And that's balance, right? Because it's equal on both sides. But is it really balance if you break out how many hours in the day you work towards your business versus how many hours you spend with your family? I spend more time with Laura than I do my own family.
Yes.
So and that's on a day-to-day basis, right? That's not balance then, at least my definition of balance. So then it goes into the question, okay, how do you define balance? Well, balance could be defined as you put in an 8-hour workday and then you spend 4 hours uninterrupted with your kids. That would be great. But then what happens when those days, those perfect planned days, go awry and you can't achieve that split?
You can't think about it in hours. And I will never forget. I can't remember which pregnancy it was because I had so many. I actually think it was when I was pregnant with Matthew, my oldest. And my doctor, who obviously a doctor, had kids of her own.
Mhm.
And she said to me, you have to think about, when you have a career like we do, you have to think about the quality of the time you're spending with your kids as opposed to the quantity
Right.
of the time that you're spending with your kids.
Yeah.
Because I could be home for 10 hours doing dishes, and not being with them. So that's
Mhm.
not quality time with them. Or I could be spending 1 or 2 hours with them where I'm really focused on what I'm doing with them. And I think that's time better spent than worrying about the number of hours that I'm
Absolutely.
with them.
Totally.
And I will never forget that conversation that I had with her. Of course, it didn't sink in at that point in time,
No.
only much later. Really only recently.
And it's a struggle. I mean, I have not achieved this at all. This is a daily struggle for me because it is so hard to turn off the brain of
Oh,
the Katina and Mara business brain and really be like, okay, set it aside. Walked into Laura's office this morning and I was like, I can't. Like every moment I feel like somebody is trying to vie for my attention and I'm
yeah.
like dizzied by it. And it's just so much. It's so overwhelming. And so then we start talking about where we are in this phase of business and where we are in what we're building towards. And I had this like just this underlying thought all week long. I'm like, there's a reason that this is all happening the way that it is, why we are just so busy and also have so many things like in the works that we're working towards and so many great ideas. And there's a reason that we feel a little bit of pressure right now and a little bit of stress from that. And not to be confused with just the stress of just daily practice and like meeting the needs of our clients and our deadlines and whatnot. There's this something underlying like that's just like marinating right now. And I said, I feel like this phase of our business life right now is happening for a reason and we won't be able to see it until it's realized. And then we're going to look back and be like, duh, that's why that happened. That hindsight is going to like kick in and we're going to be like, oh, that's why we were building the way that we were. And I want you to talk about this, about like the small incremental steps that you take that don't seem like they're amounting to anything until all of a sudden you've got like a big volcano in front of you, like ready to explode.
Yeah, I listened to some version of this point from Ed Milet this morning because he was talking about people get so focused on their big goals, right? And not the small things that matter in between that are going to get them there. And he related it to like a mom, and he related it to his mom specifically. And he said, when I was growing up, the things that she did, didn't seem at the time, they were just what she did. Like she cooked dinner every day and she packed my lunch every day for school and she picked me up every day after school. He said, I never had to worry whether my mom was going to be there. She was there every day. She was doing my homework with me. Like she was my support system. And during that time, it was just like what she did.
Right.
What didn't seem like a huge deal.
Yeah.
But it was those very small, not really small things that she did on a day-to-day basis that made him who he was, right? And that helped him grow up and brought him to where he is today. So, these things the small things that you do on a daily basis might seem insignificant or like they're not relevant to the bigger, huge goal that you're trying to achieve, but they're really the most important steps.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And
I just loved that analogy.
The way that it ties into this idea of balance is that you just don't know until you know what all of these small little things are going to add up to. So for us with our business, we were very intentional about making sure that we honored the many hats that we wear. We're moms, we're wives, we are businesswomen, and we want to achieve all of these things, but we knew that there was going to be a special combination and calculation of all of the time and efforts that was going to have to be at play. And if we can't meet clients at 5:30 because we have to take our kids to soccer or football, then that's what we're going to do.
That's not even an option for me anymore, unless it's an emergency. And I never used to be okay with that.
Right.
I struggled a lot with that.
Right.
Because the other environments that I was in, you know, I never had a female boss, I don't think. And, you know, I looked at the men that I was working for who had wives at home who were taking care of the kids and doing that stuff.
Right.
And thought to myself, how can I ever be that when I'm the mom? Right. So whereas they have their wives at home running around and taking the kids here and there and doing all these things, not to say that they didn't do anything, but they were able to do what they needed to do at work. So they had somebody else at home. Well, I don't have that. Right. So Mike is doing just as many things as I'm doing. And I don't have somebody at home. I mean, if an emergency comes up, that's different, but like on a day-to-day basis, who's home cooking dinner and driving the kid. I was in the car again all night last night, driving the kids everywhere they need to be. So that's me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I always looked at them like, and struggled with that, you know, concept of I am never going to be able to do what they do. But after years went on and you and I finally went out on our own, I realized I don't want to be like, that's not what I want.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
And we can do what we need to do within the structure that we need to do it in. Like we had Kaylee and Olivia here this week. Last week, I brought Kaylee to a closing. I was closing here yesterday, and Kaylee and Olivia were here. And one of the real estate agents and one of the women from the title company that were here, their moms, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is so great.
Yeah.
We love that you have your kids here." And so we're doing what we need to do to make it work for us.
And what's funny is, I'm going to drop the footnote here. I can almost guarantee that Olivia and Kaylee are going to grow up and reflect on the fact that they came to the office with their mom to be there while mom had to work. Mom couldn't take time off. Mom couldn't just be at home. Mom couldn't just work remotely. Like we had to be in our office building what we're building, and that they're now seeing that. So it's just like it's a snapshot that I feel like it's going to come back around at some point where they're going to, like Ed Milet pointed out in his podcast, he realized it years down the road of like, oh, look what my mom was doing and how she was showing up for me every single day. And look at how that helped shape me into the person that it is. And I'm hopeful that having the girls here this week has made them mindful of like, what they're capable of, what they can do when they get older, you know, the importance of hard work, the importance of a schedule, the importance of, you know, meeting with clients or customers or treating people the way that we do. Like they're getting that insight into it now.
And I never want Kaylee to struggle like I did with that like mythical, fictional idea of balance, because it really caused me so much stress for so long.
Yeah.
And it's just it's not possible. But did you talk about this already? When you fill up one cup, like the ripple effect that
Rachel not yet.
talks about, I think it's a perfect time to talk about that.
Right. So we're talking here, you know, about the fact that there's no balance, right? So there might be seasons in your life where you're working towards certain goals that might take more time and might shift you into a direction that it might be, you know, on the outside seeming like you're neglecting certain areas. So to put something concrete together, if you're working on your business, it might take you away from your family life. But in the reality, what you're doing, and I like how you said this today, you're building something in your business that maybe you're going to be able to provide more income to your family that then ripples down to your family. It might not be an immediate, instant result. Like we are always searching for, how is this going to affect me and benefit me right now? Well, it might not. Like it might take a little bit for it to really gain traction and start to produce a result for you that you're like, oh, that's why I did that. That's why I was working so hard, is because now I can bring home an extra X amount of dollars to my family so that we can do things together, or I can provide a little bit better for them. So it's, while on the outside, it looks like a negative right away. If you start asking questions and dig deeper into those layers, you realize that there is this ripple effect happening
What do
where
you always say? You have to ask the right
You
questions.
have to ask yourself
That's
the right
like,
questions.
You say that all the time.
It's so true though, because I'm sitting here prepping for, this podcast today. And I said to myself, gosh, like at first blush, I would say if I'm throwing myself into work, I'm taking time away from my family.
Mhm.
And I know how that feels because this month alone, I have definitely felt those pangs where I come home and I'm giving the rest to my family. Like
Yep.
I'm not giving my best. I'm exhausted. It's been stressful this month. It's lack of sleep. There's all sorts of things playing in where I feel like I'm just giving them my bare minimum. And on their perspective, like their bare minimum I'm giving is still getting us by.
Right.
We're still getting through. But I struggle with that. And I was like, man, like I don't want to live like that. Right. Like that. It's not fun the day to day, but I know that it's going to produce something 30 days, 60 days, 90 days from now, maybe even next year, that I will look back and say, this is why we worked so hard the summer of 2023. This is what it was for. It's not necessarily a negative, but it's just not a positive right now.
And you have to look at what works for you. Like I know for me, I am happier when I'm working. That's just me. We know I am a
Workaholic.
I am. And
Yep.
but I've always loved, I've been working. I started as a camp counselor. Like I always worked through high school. Like I have just always, Mike thinks I'm nuts because if he could be a stay-at-home dad and not do anything, that's like
Laura's
his
like,
dream.
give me it.
I
Yes.
know. Me, I'm like, never.
Bye.
Like, never. I like being at work. I like working. I like using my brain. I
Yep.
like talking to people. And I love what we do. So for me, I am a better mom when I'm working.
Yes.
When I am home for any length of time, it's not good.
No,
Because
I give so many kudos to the moms that
Oh,
can
no.
just they can keep their kids occupied for days on end. I don't know who you are. I'm going to clap for you now. I love you all, but
there
I
are
just
women that are just so natural at like that is their thing, that is their goal in life, and they do it happily
so well
and so
too.
well. That is not me.
No.
I was not made to be a stay-at-home mom.
No.
So I love to work, but I'm a better mom because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because you're not focused on, you're not doing everything to the detriment of your own goals, right? Like that's the other big thing. At the end of the day, you have to be filling up your cup.
Right.
I cannot try and squeeze this analogy into another podcast episode because I love it so much. Like if you do not fill up your cup, you will not be able to pour out into everybody else. It is so true. This morning, I will give you an example. I woke up a little bit later, like not terribly late, but what I've been doing is that if
what, 5:15?
No, I woke up at 6 today.
Oh my, that's like noon.
That's like noon.
For you.
It's so late. No, I'm normally up at like 5, and it's because I love to do my morning routine without being interrupted by little creatures that live in my house. So, and those are my kids, not like animals. And this morning, so I got up a little bit later, and then all of a sudden I hear Joseph come like walking into the living room where I was doing my journaling and my reading. And when this happens, I have said to myself, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to force myself to try and squeeze my routine in while Joseph is clamoring for me? And I know it's going to be stressful. Or do I shift things around so that I can get him out the door and off to school with Joey, and they can be out of the house, and Olivia is just super easy to deal with and getting her out of the house in the morning. And then I can continue my morning process. And it's that little shift where I'm like, I know if I do it the right way today, I will have more energy and I will feel more satisfied as a person so that I can start showing up better everywhere else. Yeah. And it takes just that little bit of like, okay, what should I do here? And like really evaluate how you're going to show up better. And to your point, it really set a better tone for my day today.
Yeah. And that's not any kind of balance.
No.
Like that's you just trying to make things that's out of balance.
That's
like that is
completely out of balance
morning.
Yeah.
But that's you shifting things around to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mindset that you have to work towards.
Yeah.
And the reason I love talking about this topic so much is because this was not me. for so many years. And I
Yeah.
feel like so many younger women struggle with this, especially moms with young kids who are working. But even moms who don't work, like you have to have something else, right?
Yeah.
So if you, like Ed Milet talked about health and fitness, if if that's your number one priority and what you're focusing on, that's going to have a beneficial effect to everything else
Oh, totally.
in your life.
Yes.
Just like me working and also taking care of myself and my health and stuff, that has a beneficial ripple effect, to use Rachel Hollis's term.
Yep.
In every other area of my life. So if you are a working mom, a younger woman, really struggling with the concept of balance, don't take that word out of your vocabulary.
Burn it.
Just forget it.
Because pretend it doesn't exist, because it's a myth. You are trying to chase after something that is just not going to be realized, because the definition of balance, that's why it's so delicate. You hear the words that are used to describe balance. Like, it's a delicate balance. Yeah, because it's so fragile. That balance can get shifted so quickly from like a wind blowing in the wrong way. It is just going to get off kilter. So don't set yourself up for that loss almost.
Yeah, you are setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Because it's just not something that you can achieve.
Yeah.
So whatever your area of your life that you want to focus on right now, it's fine. Other things you will have less time to give attention to. But as I said before, it's more about the quality of the attention you're giving than the quantity. So don't stress yourself out. Don't do to yourself what we have done to get to the realization that there's no such thing as balance.
Right.
And you will be much better off for it. So we hope these tips were helpful. We thank you for spending time with us, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.